Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today we're going to break down one of C.S. Lewis's most ingenious arguments from his book, Mere Christianity. He tackles a concept that has honestly tied people in knots for centuries. How can God be one but also three persons? It's a real head-scratcher, so let's jump right in.
So the whole thing kicks off with a question you've probably heard before. People will say, oh, I believe in God, but not a personal God. You know, the idea that whatever is behind the universe has to be bigger, grander than just a person. And what's interesting is Lewis actually agrees with that sentiment, but he thinks most people are looking at it from completely the wrong direction.
See, here's the trap Lewis points out. When most people say they don't believe in a personal God, what they imagine instead is something impersonal, like a life force or an energy or just a vague cosmic mind. But a force or an energy is actually less than a person, right? It doesn't think or love. The Christian idea isn't that God is just like you or me. The idea is that God is super-personal, something so far beyond a single personality that it's hard for our brains to even process. And Lewis says Christianity is really the only worldview that gives us a framework for what that might look like.
Okay, so to build this picture of a super-personal God, Lewis needs to lay a little groundwork first. And it all comes down to the difference between two simple words, begetting and making. This distinction, it's the key that unlocks the whole thing.
First up, begetting. This one's pretty simple. To beget something means to become the father of something that is the very same kind of thing as you are. A human begets a human child. A beaver begets a little beaver. They share the same nature, the same stuff.
Now, contrast that with making. This is completely different. A person can make a statue, but the statue isn't another human. It's made of stone or wood. The thing that is made is a totally different kind of thing from the one who made it.
And here is the punchline. This is why that distinction matters so much. Lewis says God begets Christ. That means Christ is of the same kind, the same nature as the Father. He is God. But God makes us human beings. We are a different kind of thing from our Creator. This simple language difference is the whole theological basis for who Christ is.
All right, I can hear you thinking, okay, this is just philosophical wordplay. How could anyone possibly claim to know this for sure? It's a fair question. And Lewis tackles it by suggesting we think about theology less like guesswork and more like a science based on actual data.
This chart he lays out makes it super clear. If you want to study rocks, well, the initiative is all yours. You just go find a rock. If you want to study, say, a fox, the fox has some initiative. It can hide from you. If you want to get to know a person, well, you both have to be willing. It's a two-way street. But Lewis says when it comes to knowing God, the initiative is 100% on his side. If God doesn't choose to reveal himself, we can't find him. We are completely dependent on his self-revelation.
So if theology is a science, what are the lab instruments? They aren't telescopes or microscopes. Lewis says the main instrument is you, your whole self. He gives this great picture of a dirty mirror. It can't reflect the sun. Our own inner lives have to be in the right condition to receive this knowledge from God. And even that's not enough. He says the full laboratory outfit is the entire Christian community, all waiting and listening together.
Okay, so with those two ideas in our pocket, begetting versus making, and theology as revealed knowledge, we're ready for the main event. This is where Lewis pulls out a truly brilliant analogy from geometry to help us try to wrap our heads around a three-personal God.
So just follow me on this. In one dimension, you can only have a straight line. Simple enough. Now, move up to 2 dimensions. You can take 4 of those one-dimensional lines and join them together to make a square. See? You're combining the simpler thing into a new, more complex thing. Now, let's jump up again to 3 dimensions. You can take 6 of those 2-dimensional squares and join them to make a cube. At every level, the simpler parts are combined to create something more real, something more.
This brings us right to the heart of it. Lewis says that the leap from our human level of existence to the divine level is like one of those jumps into a new dimension. And in what he calls God's dimension, you find a being who is 3 persons, but is still just one being, in the same way that a cube is made of 6 squares, but is still just one cube.
So, on our level, the human level, it's simple. One person is one being. 2 people are 2 separate beings. But Lewis is asking us to imagine that on the divine level, that higher dimension, persons are combined in a way that we just can't picture. A flat 2D creature living on a piece of paper could never imagine what a 3D cube is really like. And in the same way, we can't fully picture how 3 persons are one God. But it gives us a hint of what superpersonal could really mean.
So what's the point? Is this just a cool mental exercise? For Lewis, theology is never, ever just an academic game. It's always practical. This idea isn't just something to be understood, it's a reality that we're supposed to step into.
And what is that reality? Well, Lewis puts it pretty bluntly. He says the whole reason we exist, the entire purpose of humanity, is to be taken up into that very life of God.
And how we're taken in is completely different from some other worldviews. You've heard the idea of being united with the divine by being absorbed, right? Like a drop of water falling into the sea. But as Lewis points out, when that happens, the drop is gone. It basically ceases to exist. The Christian idea is the exact opposite. It says that when you're brought into the life of God, you don't lose your personality. You actually become more yourself than you ever were before.
And to finish, Lewis brings this gigantic, cosmic idea right down to the most ordinary personal moment. He says that when a person is praying, that whole dynamic, that whole three-personal life is happening right there. You are praying to God the Father. The thing inside you prompting you to pray is God the Spirit, and the whole bridge that makes it possible is Christ, who is also God. The Father, Son, and Spirit are all there, all active. And for Lewis, that's not a theory. That is the living, breathing reality of the three-personal God.